Hello and welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Wally, joined as always by my good mate, Harro. How are you, mate?
Very well, Wally. Looking forward to getting stuck in.
Mate, we are at the business end of the season. There is 4 rounds to go, then Wildcard, then 4 weeks of finals. We are well and truly coming towards the end of what has been an interesting season and probably the worst round of footy we've had overall, with a lot of, I think it won't get much better in the next 4 weeks, but then I think the finals have the potential to be really, really good. Mate, we've got plenty to look at this week with obviously a full slate of games. We've got another Hall of Fame entry, but before we get to all that, we've got to look at the good and the bad from the weekend. What were our highlights and lowlights from the punt in round 20, Harro?
Yep. So we had we sort of put up 6 team bets on the weekend, and we split them 3 and 3. So the winners we had out of that were obviously the Swans getting it done as our best bet. That was a very easy watch. And we had the Blues over the Suns as well, and also the Saints over North Melbourne. So those were the 3 good results in the team bets, including the Swans as the best bet. So that was nice. We didn't have any total points bets on the weekend, Wally, which was strange, and that's actually been probably our strongest suit, definitely out of the core markets for the season. But we couldn't find one we liked, so we didn't put any up. From the player point of view, we had some good goal kicker bets. We've been finding some good goal kicker bets of recent times, Wally. We had Tex against the Pies, and we offered him up at $2 to kick 2. We also said, look, there's a chance he kicks a bag, and that was 5. 5 was paying $29. It looked like he had 4 early in the second quarter, didn't it? But it ended up being touched off the boot. Then he didn't see it again for the rest of the night. But we still cashed in on the 2. Tommy Lynch against the Doggies for 2. We had him as well. Now this one, Joel Jeffrey, we offered him up at $6 to kick 2, Wally. And he got that done. He actually kicked 3, and one member in our Discord, he actually managed to back him to kick 3 at $61. So that was a fair effort. From the disposals, there was a few good ones. We had mate Naz, who absolutely dominated. Simpkin, and he's got it done for us 3 weeks in a row. So we're very happy with Jai Simpkin. Bailey Williams and Buslinger backs against the Tigers without Dale being there. That worked out well. Mids, the Swans mids against GWS being Goulden and Warner, as well as Callahan under, got the job done for us. So that was the pick of the good. The bad, mate, and we'll sorry. We tipped up the D's over the Cats. And we said it was a bit of a risk without DJ Turner being there, and that turned out to be the truth, because I think with DJ Turner there, that game is a hell of a lot closer, because I don't see Shannon Neal having a day out on DJ Turner, and he kicked 5 too. So although, even scoring shots, the Cats got the edge in that one. The other one that we got wrong there was the Crows over the Pies. And I was in the chat we've got with the Discord, chatting away throughout the game, and I was saying I thought when Adelaide dominated early and they only led by 3 goals at halftime, I thought there's trouble here. And after halftime, it just looked like men versus boys, and the Pies absolutely dominated. And so we got done there. A couple of plays let us down too, Wally. Took Miller, who he just looked like he was out for an afternoon stroll in the park against the Blues. He failed to get it done. And sort of Zach Merritt as well. I mean, after a big week the week before playing midfield, he just looked like he wanted to be playing for the other team, and he didn't get it done either.
Yeah, Zach Merritt's lucky he's already done his audition for the Hawks and they wanted him, because if that was his audition, he would not be coming to the brown and gold. But, mate, another good round there, obviously. A few things we missed. We were unlucky, stiff on a couple of bits and pieces. Mate, I'm shelving the selection table this week, and I want to turn our attention to our next inductee to the Hall of Fame for our team. Now, for the Footy Form Guide Hall of Fame, Harro, here's what we have. We have gone back into the annals, and we have found one from round 4 of this season. And this was one that I love, and I remember it fondly. I remember it really well, Harrow. I was watching the game at Crown Casino of all places. And it was the night before the Hawks Geelong Easter Monday clash, which I love. So we had a night staying there, and I was watching it with my boy, and I remember it really well because the thing with this was it was one of those ones that the last disposal to get the absolute max that we laddered happened very late. So it was a really enjoyable watch. But I'm talking about Riley Sanders. Now, Riley Sanders, you tipped up and said, look, cover his line. The line's only 20.5. There'll be no Libba in the team. We like this. That line was backed pretty aggressively and moved. But that wasn't all. We were like, all right, this is a guy that you can keep having some money on up to 25, 30, 35, or with the +1, it was 24, 29, and 34. Then the late out of Ed Richards solidified his spot in the midfield. And in the dying seconds, he picked up a 34th disposal for a $28 win, plus all of the other areas of the ladder. It's one of my favourites of the year, Harrow. So I'd like to welcome Riley Sanders to the Footy Form Guide Hall of Fame, as we say, for great service to punters.
I love it, Wally. That's a beauty. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one too. And I'd been waiting for probably 2 years for a chance to back Riley Sanders. I knew what he'd done as a junior. He was an absolute pig. And he'd just been having to play an outside role while they had Libba and whatnot in there getting all the possessions. And this one just lined up perfectly because not only was Libba out, but they got the Dons, who were giving up a heap of disposals, and just everything lined up perfectly. And he got the job done for us. Not only to get it done for us that week, but I think we followed up and kept backing him for a few weeks in a row. So yeah, he's been very kind to us, and 2 doggies players to get us off in the Hall of Fame.
He almost be a lifetime achievement award. He's done it a number of weeks, but he's been very good. But like, send them in. We did have a discussion. We got a great nomination for the Hawthorn Collingwood game last year that you just tipped up an absolute storm. Everything from the 40 plus at $10 to a $5 or $6 multi plus, all these individual players. It was bananas, totals, everything. But we have agreed that the Hall of Fame will be reserved for players and not overarching games. So, but there's plenty more. We've got there's a couple in the chamber that we've spoken about from previous seasons as well that we haven't forgotten about. But we will, hopefully one presents itself this week. We do like when they do present themselves. But they've got to be pretty special to make it. But mate, we move on. We've got a few questions from punters on social. An obvious one that we probably knew that we were going to get talks about Mullen going to Nick Dacos this week. Nick has a good record against him in Geelong. Do we see Nick still get his 25? Who does Ned Long go to? Smith, Myers. Who is it now? Mullen did a good job on him, but I think Nick had like 28, 29 still last time. So he still got plenty of the ball, but Mullen had heap of it himself, had score involvements. He was actually quite good and has done a job before. How do we see that, Harrow? I mean, obviously we're going to go into this game in detail, but I just thought, is that just an obvious one that he goes to Nick and then Ned Long goes to one of the others?
Look, I think with tagging, you just create a rule. Okay, if you know that somebody's going to get tagged and you can go under a line, even if it's a few disposals lower than their going rate, if you just take it every time, you're probably going to hit 8 out of 10. And so here, I think we can get Dacos under 30.5. It may or may not win, but if you just follow the rule, and we saw we had some good ones last week. We went under Finn Callahan. Was it Cozzy Pickett was another one we were under. You just follow the rule. Keep backing blokes who are getting tagged on the under. The odd one you'll get done, but overall you're going to get way ahead. Outside of that, I don't think Ned Long is the tagger for Collingwood. It's more
Ed Allen would be. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So I can't be certain that who he will go to or if he will run a tag this week. People saying Bailey Smith maybe.
They don't tag Bailey Smith, do they?
Well, they haven't in the past, but they've had. They haven't even tagged Holmes either in the past. So, I mean, it's only a role that I think Allen's been playing for maybe the last 2 months, and he's doing a darn good job of it too. And we saw what he did to Jordan Dawson in the second half. So he didn't play on Dawson all night, but he played on him in the second half, kept him very quiet. I think if you're going to go through and tag one player in that Geelong side the way it lines up at the moment, it probably is Bailey Smith. But as we saw on the weekend, the D's, they chose to tag Myers with Tholstrup. That was very effective too. So, like, I think we're not really guessing about Dacos. The other guys, we're kind of guessing, aren't we? And I think where we're guessing about a player and a tag, we don't back over, we don't back under, we just steer clear.
Yep. Very, very good, Harro. All right, next question. I'm assuming this is about your commentary. So we all know the fuck, marry, kill game and that. And I think the AFL equivalent of that is start, bench, cut. I think we'll go with start, bench, cut. And they've just gone, they've said the game and they've gone Kelly, Jack, King. I'm assuming this is Kelly Underwood, Jack Revolt, David King, who are the Fox commentators, because otherwise I'm trying to work out what it is. So I'm assuming it's that.
Yeah.
I've got I think this is a really, really simple one myself. I don't know if you've got a take on it, Harro, but
Let's hear your take, Wally.
Well, I love Kingy. I reckon Kingy's awesome. So Kingy's starting. If I have to have Revolt there, he'd be on the pine, and then I'm cutting Kelly Underwood. That's like they've all selected themselves. To me, that is like having, Heaney, Warple, and a VFL player I haven't heard of. Like, that's how I describe those three. Is that fair?
I think it is fair.
I reckon Kingy is just, I love Kingy, and Fireball's just the greatest thing. So I'm a Kingy and Kane fan unashamedly. Well, how would you line him up?
I just think with Kingy, he's just had a bad couple of weeks. So he's actually a good player, but he's had a bad couple of weeks. That's how I'd kind of talk about Kingy. And so I'd have him in the same order. Like Jack Rewalt. And so I've got Richmond mates, and they say like they used to love Jack Rewalt, and then he's ruined it for him by going into commentary. So, can he just stop? Funny. And I can remember him for how he was as a player.
Yeah. And this is the thing, Harro, is that there's so many people that are gone the other way. Like, as a Hawthorn supporter, I obviously didn't like Matthew Lloyd as a player, but I loved Lloydie when he went into the media. I think Matthew Richardson turned a lot of people around that you didn't like him at Richmond. I think Tom Hawkins is turning people around. I reckon he's been elite. You get these players that just go to another level in the media and people go, I actually really like listening to them. And then you get the ones that go the other way, Harro. And I hear the same. I don't really hear enough of him myself. I don't care. And I haven't had him for a long period of time. So he's just sort of in the middle. But I find the same with Richmond mates. They say exactly the same thing about him because you listen more for when it's an ex-player that you liked and they're in the media. You obviously listen out more for them. And then so I think Richmond fans are the ones that probably are hearing more of him and have more of a judgment than the rest of us. I don't care either way. But I think Kingy and Kelly select themselves in the other two positions of starting and being cut pretty easily.
Yeah.
There you go. Different sort of a question for us this week, Harro, that one. All right.
Don't mind it.
Don't mind it. All right. Now, this one was following on. We had an English chap, and all English people have to be called a chap because they're English. We know that. Had an English chap asking us previously about why games are scheduled at the same time. He's asked a continuation on that, asking why don't the AFL schedule games on Sunday evenings? It seems every week that there's a public holiday in that state the following day they'll do it. Do we think they need protecting from not being able to get up on a Monday? Do we understands that teams want to be back at home, but we could schedule games in Melbourne on Monday? Look, I've got to be honest, Harro. Like this is for me, for somebody to get a hold of our game that hasn't for a long time, and an English person And with English people, Harro, we don't always agree on sport. We know that. We kind of hate each other when it comes to cricket, but in a good way. But anyway, his name's Sam, by the way. I should call him Sam. So, Sam, you have managed to come into this sport late and absolutely hit the nail on the head. I don't understand any of it either, mate. I've been watching this since I was a kid. I've been watching AFL for 40 years. And I don't understand the scheduling. I don't understand the fixturing. I love Sunday night footy. I used to like Monday night footy. In fairness, I wouldn't want my team playing on a Monday night. So that's why you don't have it, because you wouldn't want it. But Sunday night footy is awesome. When you get that little bonus and you don't have to give up the remote to a reality TV show at 7:30 on a Sunday night, Harrow, it's one of the beautiful little things in life when you get that extra game. Even give me the evening game of the 6 o'clock. And yeah, maybe not a bad shout. Play two teams in the same state on the last game on a Sunday, so neither have to travel, and then that takes out the issue. I don't think there's a, but if they play Thursday nights, which is a school night, for lack of a better term, then they can play Sunday nights. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Sammy, I am on board with you, mate. Keep them coming. As long as you talk about fixturing, you got a couple of ears here to hear. Harrow, we'll move on because we've got a lot of footy to talk about. And it all starts with a huge game at the Coliseum on Thursday night between Collingwood and Geelong. The Pies are $2.19. Geelong are $1.68. The line is 5.5. Collingwood's win against Adelaide is one of the more impressive ones this year. They went over there, the position they were in that second quarter, to how they finished off the half and got back in touch, and then how they put them away in the second half was about as a Collingwood McRae performance as you see. They look dangerous. They look good. I'm not rapt to have to play them again this season, which is always that's a good sign if you're a team that people don't want to come up against. Mate, I can't wait for this one, Harrow. I reckon this is going to be an absolute belter.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one that everybody will have their eyes on, I think. It should be a beauty. So just going back, they met each other already once this season and the Cats won that by 9 goals. You'd have to say that the Pies are going much, much better now than what they were back then. Also, the Cats, they don't have homes in Cameron, and they did have them back then. Just on an injury front, the Pies will miss Maynard, and I think he will be missed. De Goey also under a cloud, so that's one worth watching. You can't really take anything away from the performance of the Pies last week. It was a sensational performance. Having said that, it is only one performance. And so if, there's a lot of talk about them right now being a premiership threat, I think that's totally over the top. That was a really good, genuine win, but it's just one win against the top sort of 7 side, and that's sort of it's in isolation at the moment. Whereas the Cats have been, a lot more competitive with the top end of the ladder throughout the whole season. So you'd have to think that there's a bit of an edge there just on the form, to the Cats if you just isolate the form against the best sides. Further to that, so if I'm forced to bet here, I'm not betting on the win, but if Jordan De Goey is not named, I'll have a bet on the Cats. Because I think if you start removing Collingwood's game winners, then, and there's only a few of them, but De Goey is definitely a massive part of the reason why they've been playing well. And if he's out, that's just enough to sway me to have a bet on the Catters. So that's where I sit with that. The total points I like here, Wally. We couldn't find a total points bet last week, but we walked straight into one here, and it's the over 171.5. The Cats showed against the Ds that they're going to score, and they're also going to allow plenty of scoring. And the Pies, they bucked a long-standing trend of low-scoring games against the Crows. I think that shows where they're at the moment. And the two teams also played in a high-scoring game earlier in the year. I think this is a pretty low line for a Cats game. So happy to be over that 171.5. Thinking about who's picking up the slack with Holmes not being there. And This guy goes very much unheralded, but he's a good player. It's Catkins, as I like to call him. He got a full run as a pure mid on the weekend, and with Mullen going to be doing the defensive work on Dacos, he's really there now to chase more footy. And we saw him doing that on the weekend. And he had 23, which is 5 above his average. We can back him to get 20 here. Bruin is another one. He's not one of my favourite players. I feel like he doesn't do a lot with the footy, but they keep putting him into a bit of a role, a main role, mopping up in the sort of behind centre, which is going to be a really good place to be against the Pies. He got 27 against the D's. You can get him to get 24 against the Pies, and I don't think the Pies are going to mind if he has it. Looking at Myers, look, he got tagged by Tholstrup on the weekend. I didn't see that one coming. I wish I did, but I wonder if the Pies are going to look at that and put work into him, or if he gets a bit of a bounce back. I'm probably just going to avoid him. As we said, Dacos being tagged by Mullen. He got 29 against him last time. That's set to 30.5. Just as a rule, I'll have a little bet under, but you probably will never feel safe with the bet until the very end because he can rack them up so quickly. There's one other bet I found here, Wally, and it's bloke by the name of Polkinghorn, who has kicked 2-2 in his first 2 games of league footy, but he's also you take that into account, but then you look at how many shots he's getting. He's getting a lot of shots, and he's $2.50 to repeat the 2, and so that's our goal kicker bet for the game, and I think we've found enough for that one.
Love it, Harro. Love that a lot. To Pognor. Nice. All right, we move on to Friday night, Harro, and we've got Freo Western Bulldogs over in the West. Dockers obviously short price favourite at $1.16. Western Bulldogs are $5.30. The line's 31.5 for this. The Dockers just keeps rolling on. There's 4 weeks to go. They're getting into a position where they can, let's be honest, Harry, they're getting in a position they can start like thinking about September and resting players and managing players I don't know how that's going to affect the result. I don't think the Dogs have got what it takes to go over there and win, but it's just they are in position 1A. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah. How do I look at this one? I feel like there's just a massive gap in class and form between these two teams. Freo, you're going to have to be a little bit careful with them because we don't know if they're going to start, teams often in the lead up or this time of year, if they're in a strong position, they can start doing your overtraining or different training loads and whatnot and have the odd bad week. But I think at home on a Friday night, I feel like they're going to have enough in the tank to get themselves up for this one. And maybe they'll target some away games or something like that where they might play some shenanigans like that. But I'm going to say that Freo are going to turn up. And if Freo turn up, 31.5 is not enough against the Doggies, in my opinion. And if I've been right through the Doggies' form, it's really nowhere. It's nowhere near the level. And don't get sucked in by them having a big win against Richmond because I think that performance from Richmond's got to be almost the worst I've seen this season. They were terrible. So I'm not going to get sucked into thinking that their Doggies are back based off that. This also, Wally, consider you're in the Doggies' shoes. They have a huge game against North Melbourne 6 days after this one. And they could easily get behind in this game. And their percentage doesn't matter, the Dogs, because it's in such bad shape. They can't recover it. And so they could just completely turn their eyes to 6 days' time against North when they will play in a big game. And that could lead to Freo absolutely blowing them out. I see that as a potential in this game. Where the Doggies are weak is where Freo are strong as well. We love taking on the Dogs' key defenders. So that is backing the Freo key forwards. And it's a little bit hard to pick exactly where all the goals are going to go because there's 3 of them down there. So you could use those combined markets at, I think it's at Sportsbet, or I'm not sure. Maybe a couple other bookies have them as
I know
well.
a
But
few have them. I reckon most of the big boys now have them.
yep, yep. So that could be good. Also, 165.5 is a low line for a Freo game that's going to be played in good conditions as well. And the only thing I think that will stop this going under, and we see it a little bit in Freo games, is poor kicking for goal. So long as we get normal kicking, I think this goes over the 165.5. Um, Also, look, the Dogs have been conceding massive disposal numbers. Even the Tigers, who were like abysmal on the weekend, they still had 372 disposals against the Dogs. So they've averaged 400 against in the last 5 games. So there's got to be some Freo players here who are going to get a ton of it. There's a couple I picked out. I think there's others there which we can find later. But Clark, he's at 21.5. Wally, that's a line on the low side for him. A good matchup, and Murphy Reed as well, whose line is 23.5. It's I don't see the Doggies having a great matchup for him. So happy to play those two, but also keep an eye out on our X, because I feel like there'll be a nice SGM for this game, which we'll put out for the punters.
Love that. Friday night SGM. The other thing is that what you find, a lot of the promos different books have, they really highlight those Thursday and Friday night games, whether it's a free hit or whatever it is so like just it's a good one to go after. All right, Harro, that all makes perfect sense. And Hayden Young will return as well this week, so they will be as close to full strength as they probably. I don't. Maybe outside of that, O'Meara makes it into the 23. I don't know, but they look about as strong as they could. Probably not. They look as strong as they could be. Again, we've spoken about their injury list. They've been really fortunate. All right, mate. Move on now. We've got next game is our first Saturday game, and it's St Kilda v Sydney. Under the lid, St Kilda at $2.68. Sydney's $1.47. The line's 14.5. These two met. It'd be almost a couple of months ago now, and St Kilda probably should have beaten them. There was just a couple of things late that got Sydney over the line. Sydney obviously need to keep winning because Hawthorn and Brisbane are lurking, and one of those will go past them if they lose. So if Sydney lose another game, you'd think Brisbane and Hawthorn, the winner of that game in 2 weeks' time, that'll be the game. Or actually, I think it's next week, sorry. The winner of that game next week will leapfrog them. So Sydney's got a huge amount to play for. They've got 2 trips to Marvel. They got them and the Baggers later in the season, Harrow. It's a tricky one. It feels like they're a bit back, but GWS at the moment are that poor at times that we just don't know.
Agreed, mate. Yeah, it's exactly what I've got written down here. It's like, are the Swans back, or have they just run into some weaker opposition at the right time? I'm not too sure, because their form in the last sort of 10 weeks hasn't been convincing. Although they looked good on the weekend, I'm not sure where the Giants are. So I'm actually just going to stay out of the line altogether and focus on the disposals here, because it was like a disposal festival. I think we called it the disposal Mardi Gras, didn't we, at the time? It was 430 versus 400. And the Saints games are going super high disposal. So, and Sydney, they love to rack it up too. So it's just finding the right guys. I've got a few here which I've picked out. Avoiding Heaney with the chance that they send Windhager to him. And his line's high, so avoiding that one. Blakey, though, he's coming off 2 really tough matchups for his role. And he still managed to get 21 and 24 in 2 really tough matchups. His line's 23.5 here. So I'm happy to be over Blakey. And the Saints, they are the number 3 matchup in the AFL for his type of player. So happy to be there. He did go over against them last time as well. Maxi Hall, mate, he got the job done for us on the weekend. His line is 20.5. He's over that 10 of his last 12 games, and his 2 misses were 19s. And he hasn't got a bad role here against the Swannies either. Another guy here, Wally, which we love, is Charlie Curnow. He loves Marvel, as we know, and he's $1.90 to kick three. He's done that 4 of his last 5 games. He only kicked 2 against the Saints last time, but he did have 7 shots at goal. So I don't think it's a team he can't get 3 goals against, basically, at this venue, which he likes. Should be a high scoring game as well, which
And
should suit him.
Harrow,
And
with that as well, I think everyone will agree he's really gotten into his work, and Curnow in the second half of the season has looked better. He's now leading the Coleman. He's got something, they've got something to shoot for there. And I think that like he will want that moving to Sydney when everyone was sort of doubting him early, and then to win a Coleman. I think that I look at those added things, and he'll be 3 goals from me. Just feels, I don't want to say anything too certain, but 3 goals under the lid with something to play for, and seven shots on last time he played him. Please,
yeah,
give me that.
yeah. There's one other I've got here, Wally. And so long as Sheldrick doesn't get named back in the team, we saw Rowbottom get back to his best on the weekend with more of that inside mid role, which he hasn't really had all season. And he had 23 disposals, laid 10 tackles, which is the Rowbottom which we love. And you can back him to have 18 this week, and it's $2.10 as well. So there's another one for you. The Saints will put work into the Swans mids, but they won't put work into a guy like Rowbottom. So he should do all right.
Great. And that's it. If Sheldrick doesn't play, if Sheldrick plays, you probably leave it alone.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Very good, Harrow. Plenty for us to like there, mate. I'm loving this. You got a nice little spread across the board on all games. Hawthorn, North Melbourne down in Tassie. Hawthorn's $1.13, North Melbourne $6.05, 36.5 points. This has not been a happy hunting ground for North for some years now. Hawthorn, one of the many teams that North Melbourne have a poor losing streak against. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what you say here. Like, I know percentage doesn't matter to Hawthorn, but wins do because of the draw. But wins do. I don't see a world in which, and forgetting even bias, I don't see a world in which North don't go down there and just cop a little whack and come back up with losing by a fair bit.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we get a game down at Launceston, Wally, and every time we get a game down at Launceston, what do I say? It's going to be perfect.
So I can't believe it's
conditions.
perfect weather. Great conditions. It'll be cold, but it'll be dry and sunny. That's what we get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing the weather they get down in Tassie for the reputation the place has. It's actually, from a footy point of view, they just get great weather for footy all the time. So that's led me into wanting to back the over 174.5, mate. The only thing, so we had a little streak there where we were going under North, basically total points. There was about 3 or 4 games in a row there. And I noticed that they went away from that style a couple of games ago. And although their games have gone low scoring since then, it's all just been down to accuracy. And so we saw their game made up at 155 points on the weekend, but they had 50 scoring shots in the game. And I haven't had a look at the expected scoring in that, but I'm telling you, it would have been well over. If you go back 2 more games, right, they've had 48 and 49 scoring shots. So they're getting around the 50 scoring shot level in their last 3 games, which says they're not playing that turgid sort of style, which they played for 3 or 4 weeks after getting hammered by Freo. And Hawthorn, we know they love to score and they will play attacking footy, and they're very efficient. So I like the over 174.5. Now, the last 2 games between these two sides have gone well over 200. So that's got to be a little chance to happen again as well. The Hawks do have the biggest game of their season next week. It is coming off a 6-day break into travel to Brisbane. So I'm looking at this and going 3/4 time. You know, you could easily see the Hawks pull up stumps in this one. And that's just enough to put me off backing Hawthorn at the 36.5 line. However, you could back Hawthorn to be leading by, say, 28 or something at 3/4 time, or just the halftime line. because they've definitely got a huge class and form supremacy over North. The disposals on this one, Wally, very tricky because you look at it and all of the Hawthorn players' lines are very high. And
Mm,
you got to look at it, look at why. Okay. So the last couple of weeks, Hawthorn have had huge disposal counts. But you got to look at who they played. They played the Tigers and the Bombers. I mean, so I think they had 460 odd disposals against the Bombers. Um, that's just not going to happen again. And you look at North. North actually
mm,
concede AFL number 17 for disposals. So you got to play. You got to play the counterintuitive sort of option here, and that is probably to find a couple of blokes to go under on the Hawthorn side. Although you're thinking, kind of weak opposition on a ground they love, rah rah rah. Their lines are high and they don't get an awesome sort of matchup. And I found a couple. It's Massimo D'Ambrosio. His line is 22.5. He's
mhm.
only been over that 12 of his last 45 games. So I could be under that. Hardwick is the other one. His line is 22.5. He's only reached that number 4 times in his last 45 games, and 2 of them were when Impey and Amon were out. So there's a couple of unders I've found from a disposal point of view. A lot of the Hawthorn players are set super high. So it's not an easy one to get involved in, but happy to play the overs on the total points.
Love it, Harrow. Very good. Plenty to like there for all the punters. All right, we'll move on to the next game now. Also on the Saturday, we've got Port Adelaide GWS. Port are $1.83. GWS $2.01. The line's 1.5. If you looked at the ladder and then the way GWS were playing a couple of weeks ago, you go, how is this price right? But the bottom line is that Port keep themselves in a lot of games. They played well on expected scoring. We know how well they'll be going. They're probably one of the best bad teams we've seen in years, and Josh Carr's doing a great job with what he's got. And GWS are just we don't know what they are, mate. They're the absolute like basket case. It's extraordinary whether they're up here, down here. They usually play to the level of the team, which suggests that they'll probably come out and not do a lot here. It's such a tough game. It's a pick 'em game like on the odds, and it makes sense, Harold. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, where I come at this one, Wally, is I'll just have a look at the Giants' injury list, okay? And they lose Callahan now after losing Toby Green the week before. And you look at what they already had out. It's Tom Green, Josh Kelly, Jesse Hogan, Brett Daniels, Briggs, Buckley. Like you could build a team around their outs. I mean, if you try and put that into Hawthorn, right, the equivalent players at Hawthorn, you're losing Will Day, you're losing your skipper, say Sicily, you're losing your best inside mid,
Newcomb,
say that's Newcomb, you're losing your best winger, say Ginnivan, your full forward, Gunston, your Brett Daniels, that'd be a little player I really like. Come on, Wally, help me. Half
Dylan Moore,
forward. Yep, Dylan
Dylan Moore,
Moore. You're losing your number one ruckman, and you're losing, say, your full back. So, I don't know.
Barras,
Yeah,
Tom
Barras.
Barras.
You take those guys out of Hawthorn side, how do you reckon they'd go?
No, you cooked.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely cooked. But, I
yeah,
mean, Port have their share of injuries too because Butters is out. They still don't have Rosie.
yeah.
But Horn Francis will return, won't he?
He played last week, played really well.
Of course he did. What am I saying?
Yeah.
So
So
he
I go on, Wally, and Port have 12 out, but it's not the same level of player
no.
that they got. Although they do have like a couple of guns, they kind of a lot of their 12 are actually role players as well, which they can kind of replace. Um, and I think, like, you look at the ladder, yes, the Giants mathematically they can still make the 10, but I think in their heart of hearts, they would know that their season is cooked. And so I just think the motivation is more with the home team. I mean, Port Adelaide's season's been cooked for a long time now, but they keep showing up. And so I'm happy to back the home team here, mate. And actually, when you look at their home form, it's quite strong. They did beat the Crows comfortably. Only going back, 3 or 4 weeks ago, they also pushed Freo at home right to the end. I think it was pretty close in the last quarter before Freo
Yep.
kicked away. And they beat North there. And I think that North would have to be at about a similar level to this Giants side. So I'm happy to be with the home team just to win. From a disposal point of view, we had some really nice success backing the Swans mids versus the Giants. They kind of tried to keep Heaney quiet, and the rest just went berserk. So, who are we going to focus on here? Like, let's say that they try and do a similar job on Heaney as they might do to Horn Francis. Let's just say that that's the
Yep.
case. Well, you could look to target the other mids for Port. And one guy I got my eye on here is Jace Burgoyne, who's now getting roughly like a 50% mid roll. He's got a really good tank. He runs all day. He got 24 and 22 against Freo and the Lions, who are very tough matchups. Now he gets a soft matchup with a line of 20.5. So I'm happy to back that. There's other other Port players you could target, but he's the one I've picked out. For the Giants, looking at who's going to get an opportunity with some of their prime mids being out, I've picked out Xavier O'Halloran, who got a full midfield role on the weekend, had the 23 disposals, and his line's also 20.5. So happy to play those two guys as well.
All right, very good, Harro. We move on. Carlton Brisbane's the Saturday night game. Back down here in Melbourne, we've got Carlton $4, Brisbane's $1.25. The line's 25.5. Brisbane can't put a foot wrong, which is an idea for Carlton. I think that Carlton obviously can still make it. I mean, they're on equal points as St Kilda. They're out on percentage, right? So if you think St Kilda's going to struggle this week, obviously against Sydney, we haven't sort of touched that. Like Carlton will be looking at this going, if we can cause an upset, we're all of a sudden in the wild card. Do they want to play in the wild card? Do they want their picks? Do they just want to focus on getting Walker? We don't know. But I mean, there's still something in this, Harrow.
Yeah, I mean the Blues are playing to win. They're not messing around with the Walker stuff or whatnot. It's not a. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won. You know, they've actually just beaten our line that we took in the preseason.
Yeah,
so
I know.
So that was,
Harrow. I'm well aware.
Yeah, that was looking a bit shaky until they axed Vossi. So cheers for that. So we'll take that one. But anyway, where did I come at this one? So the total points line, we're looking at 179.5, Wally. The Lions games, you just have to be over. You even look at the game on the weekend, and I didn't have a bet in this, but we had some punters in the chat, who went under. And at 67 points at half time, you're thinking you're a pretty sure thing, aren't you? The next minute, 126 point second half.
Crazy.
And the total ended up sailing over. I look at it, and 12 of the Lions' last 13 games are over 180, which includes their last meeting with the Blues. I keep coming back to Fags' comments in a presser. I'm not sure after which game, but it was when they'd returned to form. And he just straight out said that the Lions are a better team when they're playing in fifth gear. And since then, it's just been all over. It's just about the strongest, probably, trend this season, as well as, the Port Adelaide under the Lions over it's been very strong. So the line, I'm not really compelled to bet, though I do lean to the Lions here for sure. But I think I'll leave it alone. Player-wise, I've got a couple of good ones here, Wally. We saw on the weekend that the Blues kept Noble and the Ulwand boys way under their lines. They went really low, and the Blues have been doing this for ages now, and we've been backing it too. I can recall a few like Josh Dacos under, Whitfield under, Ash under, and also Zorko, mate. He only managed 19 last time they played the Blues, and we can get under him at 28.5 here, Wally. I feel like that's a really nice spot to be. Will Ashcroft's another one. Now, He had just the 23 against the Blues last time. His line's 30.5. And with McCluggage back, they're really sharing the midfield rotation now. He's getting more like that 55% midfield time, and he's also getting a huge amount of scoring shots. So he is pushing forward a fair bit, still getting plenty of the footy, but his line is 30.5. Happy to be under there. Special mention to this guy, Wally, Taylor Byrne. He got the Rising Star on the weekend, and he played an awesome game against the Suns. So I just want to give him a shout out. He is like what do people say? He's the Timu version of the Wiz. Like he's going pretty well. I'll give you the tip. And I think Carlton fans are very happy with him. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Another guy, this is a bit left field, Wally. I wouldn't normally take on this sort of bet, but Georgie Hewitt is $1.95 to kick a goal. He's done that in 7 of his last 8 games. Now, he's also $12 to kick 2. He's done that in 3 of his last 4 games. Imagine if you're on that the last month. So,
Yeah, exactly.
not normally my type of bet, but you just look at what he's actually been doing and the way the odds are, and it's kind of compelling you to sort of at least have a little tickle on the $12. But yeah, that's where I've got to in this one, mate.
Yeah, mate. If you got a hit rate like that in the last 8 games, it makes sense to have a little look at that one. All right, we'll move on to Sunday's games now, Harro. We've got Richmond West Coast, the blockbuster at the MCG. Richmond's $2, West Coast is $1.85. The line's 1.5. I'm interested on your take here. I'll be interested as well to see teams. There is no doubt. I know they're away from home. There's no doubt West Coast have looked better than Richmond. Their best footy has looked better. Their form lines are better. I saw Richmond live against Hawthorn two weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. That first half is as bad as I've seen a team play footy. And then the second half, the score flattered them in the end. They just put players back, just clogged it up, and then Hawthorn were like, well, what are we doing? Like, we're not going to hurt ourselves here to try and win by 100 instead of 60. Like, it was as bad as footy is. If they play like that, West Coast will win comfortably, I would have thought.
Yeah, I've been very disappointed with Richmond in their last month. They did show a bit earlier in the season, but they've easily been the worst team in the comp in the last month, and that's saying something because Essendon have been bad. So I could only be with West Coast here. I wanted to have a little look at the ladder, Wally, while we're looking at this game, because I think it actually means something. Richmond, all they have to do is keep losing, and they lock in the number 1 pick. And I think that the number 1 pick is going to have a fair bit of value to them, especially given that they're in the hunt for Zach Butters. So Richmond just need to keep losing, and they are in a really good position for that. Now, West Coast, on the other hand, they can't move up and they can't move down. They're 2 games behind Port plus percentage, and Essendon can't catch them. So they're stuck in 16th. And just based on that alone, just based on that motivation factor, let alone the form, and we're getting an even money game. Richmond have been by far the worst team in the last month. West Coast, they've been all right this season. They haven't been too bad. And they've won the 4 games, but they've, as we saw against the Doggies at Marvel not long ago, they had 5 extra scoring shots on the Dogs. Should have won that. They've had a few close games where they haven't quite got over the line as well, and I feel like they've also got a lot healthier injury list. They'll get a couple of players back, like they'll get Baker back certainly this week, and I'm pretty keen to be with West Coast, mate. I think that they can get the job done. They don't get the chance to come over and play on the G all that often, and I think that they'll get it done, mate.
Very good, Harro. All right, mate, we'll move on to the next game on Sunday, which should have a little more in it, you would hope. That's Gold Coast, Melbourne. Gold Coast, $2.14, Melbourne, $1.71. The line's still 5.5. Gold Coast keep turning up, playing like shit, and keep either being a slight favourite or a goal underdog or whatever it is against these other teams that are actually competing for top 6 spots. Mate, look, I don't know. Like, they're at rock bottom for me. Players want out. They can say what they want about the on-field stuff with Track and Lombard and how they're all matey at training, but I mean, it's just like, it's just looks like, and then also just in the rooms afterwards, the row stuff in breaking down in tears. Ben King sitting next to him, not even consoling him. Ben Long had to come over the rooms. There's so much going on with this team that just looks like it would be a nightmare of a place to be. And
I haven't
Melbourne,
heard
on the
about
other
any
hand,
of
yeah,
that
they
stuff.
lost to Geelong, but they've looked great this year. Melbourne are playing above themselves. They're going beautifully.
Well, Wally, yeah, I wasn't aware of all this crying in the rooms and stuff.
You haven't
That's
seen the Matt
interesting.
Rowell footage?
No, I live in a bit of a cave, I think. I don't
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen any of that. But it's interesting because they look soulless, mate. They look soulless. And I couldn't, like, the Demons are the absolute opposite of that right now. I thought the most sort of indicative thing of the way Gold Coast performed on the weekend was that they laid 34 tackles for the game, Wally. Like, Jesus, does it get any lower than that? And it's a bit of a sign of, guys not buying in to do the little things. And your skipper, who plays a full game in the midfield, and I love this bloke. He's a fantastic player, but he hasn't laid a tackle, Wally. Noah
That's
Anderson,
extraordinary.
full game in the midfield, has not laid a tackle. Sorry, there's something wrong there. Christian Petracca, your superstar recruit, absolute gun, one of my favourite players. He's played a full game in the midfield. He's laid one tackle. I just don't get it. And they're shot. They are shot. I don't know. You lose to a shit dog side who are undermanned on your home deck comfortably, really, when you put it all together. And then you come down to Carlton, and I think expected scoring at Carlton winning by 50 points or something.
And Harro, just as damning on that, I'll just, on the back of what you're saying, Carlton have had in this match over 100 more disposals. You've had 117 more disposals. So you've had a whole lot more of the footy than they have.
Yeah.
And then you've also laid 18 more tackles. So that is just as damning as it gets. So for you to have an extra 30% in terms of the ball, in terms of disposal, and then to have an extra 50% tackles, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That is as loud as alarm bells get.
Yeah.
Mate, they have given up.
Do you want to know the other frightening thing? They've got the best injury list in the AFL right now.
Oh, mate,
They've got three blokes on the injury list.
Yeah. Mate, every way you turn, it's scary.
So,
and we were all seduced, Harro. We were talking like they were going to win the flag and like Track's going to win the round. It was just extraordinary. There's no way of seeing this.
Well,
there is no way anyone could have predicted this. I don't know a single person that would have backed Gold Coast under their wing line at the start of the season. You may not have backed their overs, but no one was backing their unders. And it was a 13 or 14 and a half. Like, mate, this is extraordinary. Anyway, on to this game.
Yeah, so
why did Melbourne win by 100?
I sort of said in my preview, if the D's weren't missing Chandler, who's a big out, and DJ Turner, I would say this isn't like best bet of the round. It's best bet of the year. But I'm not going to go that far because they are missing those two really important cogs. And so instead of saying it's like best bet of the year, I'm just going to say it's just a very good bet. The D's you have to just take the form, just scrub the names that are on the team sheets and just look at the form. And the D's are a long way ahead. I'll put it that way. Then we want to look at so I'm happy to back the D's. They only have to win by a goal, or you could just back them to win. Then we look at the D's. We saw that Carlton inside mids have a field day against the defenseless, really, Suns is what I'd call them. And you've got Cripper, Walsh, and Smith all 30 plus. So looking at the inside mids and who that might be for Melbourne, given that we just saw what Carlton's inside mids did, and it's your Sparrow, Walley, your Jack Steele, your Pickett. These types of guys should all get get a really good run at it, and so along with having a bet on the D's to win. Just backing those inside mids, those bulls, so to speak, for the Ds, you should be in a pretty good spot.
Very good. And then the last game of the weekend, Harro, Essendon Adelaide.
Righto.
Essendon v Adelaide. Essendon's $9.50. Adelaide's $1.06. The line's 45.5 points. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's just very Adelaide to come out and smash them here, isn't it?
Yep.
After they do love a good response too. It's like they're a bit of an emotional team or something. You look at they responded pretty well after getting beaten by Port in the showdown, and obviously Essendon, very little to play for. Not really. 45 points doesn't really seem like a lot over in Adelaide. So that's where we'd be, Wally, with that one. And we've also seen that, like with Essendon, Hawthorn rack up just an enormous amount of the footy. Adelaide are quite restrictive, so focusing on some of your Adelaide guys to fill up would be the way to be. I'll pick out a couple for us here. So, like Rankin's just been really good to us, hasn't he? And he had his 25 on the weekend against the Pies, even with he got some attention in the first half. They swapped it to Dawson after half time, but he still got 25, and we can get Rankin just to get 26. And you look at his last 4 games, and he's gone 27, 31, 30, and 25 with some attention. So he's a good one there. Berry would be another one. He's coming off 30 against the Pies. His line's 22.5. This sort of matchup should really suit him as well. I'm not going to touch Peatling. He did us over on the weekend. He keeps getting injured in the run of the game, but then kind of gets himself up for the next week. So maybe he's one you don't want to follow. There is a guy here who I had in the back of my mind. Let me find him. Oh, yes, Saligo. He is a chance to get a little bit more time around the footy this week in a role that should suit him. So he's a guy we can look at as well. And then from a goals perspective, well, there should be plenty of goals in this one, especially from Adelaide. Again, if we're looking at no, which we are looking at the other boy who's out suspended. Well, Thilthorpe, he looked like he got back to a bit of form on the weekend. I thought he kicked 3, and he's $2.25 to kick 3. And they're not playing him as the extra ruck. He's spending his full time down there. So he's a guy who's probably due for a bit of a bag, and he gets a good matchup here. So if you want to have a goal kicker bet, there's one there for you.
Very good, Harro. Been great as always, mate. Before we leave, let's get your best bet of the round.
We're going to back the D's to win by a goal as our best bet of the round. Much more to play for, playing with a lot more spirit, and so that's who we want to be with.
Perfect, mate. Well, that's it for another week of Footy Form Guide. We say it every week. If you haven't checked out the Discord and joined it yet, make sure you do, because we'll be back for the Discord on a Friday morning. We do another pod, which is the post-teams pod, where we give our updated thoughts, plus plenty of cool stuff over the weekend. There's bets in there. There's competitions. We do all of that. And keep an eye on our socials as well. As Harro said, there was a couple of games he looked at there that he will probably give a bit more attention to, and you never know what happens on the weekend after teams as well. Harro, have a good one, mate. Enjoy the round of footy, and we'll see you next week.
All the best, punters.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.